Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I'm Nick Lewis, and today we're stepping into a topic that lives right at the intersection of faith, power, history, and modern war. This is not a surface level conversation to discuss at the lunch table or the water fountain. It's not a talking point episode. This is a deep dive into one of the most controversial ideas circulating in geopolitics today. The concept often referred to as the Greater Israel Project or Greater Israel. You've heard it before online. You've heard it in political debates, and you've even heard it in religious discussions, most likely even maybe at your local church. Some people treat it like a secret master plan, while others dismiss it as outright nonsense. Today, we're not going to do either. We're going to break it down piece by piece. Where does this idea come from? What does your Bible actually say? What has Israel's leaders actually said? What current wars are actually doing to the map? And what all this means for the good old US of A. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about Israel. It's about power, territory, and whether America is tied to the outcomes it doesn't fully control. Before you can understand the modern conversation, you have to go back, way back. In the very beginning of Scripture, Genesis 15:18 states, "To your descendants I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates." Now see, this isn't symbolic language at face value. That's actual geographic locations. It's a massive region. Then if you look at Exodus 23:31, "I will set your borders from the Red Sea to the Sea of the Philistines, and from the desert to the river." Again, it's broad, it's expansive. But here's where serious analysis begins. There is no single agreed interpretation of these passages. Scholars often debate whether these are ancient historical boundaries or are they conditional promises. They often debate whether these are symbolic or spiritual, and they even debate whether they apply to a modern nation state at all. So when people talk about Greater Israel, they're not referencing a single agreed doctrine. They are referencing one interpretation among many, one that reads these texts as territorial and even potentially applicable to today. So let's fast forward thousands of years to today, to modern Israel, which is not a biblical kingdom. It's a modern nation state established in 1948. It's been shaped by war, diplomacy, international agreements, security concerns. Its borders are definitely not drawn from the book of Genesis. What they are drawn from is the 1947 United Nations Partition Plan, the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, and the 1967 Six-Day War. Subsequent negotiations and realities on the ground, that's what matters, because it tells you something critical. It absolutely tells you that modern Israel operates on geopolitical logic, not purely on theological maps. So now here's where things can get interesting. Even though Israel is a modern state, its language is tied to history, and its identity still shapes its policies. Prime Minister Netanyahu has repeatedly emphasized historical connection to the land. In 2014, Netanyahu stated, in Judea and Samaria, the Jewish people are not foreign occupiers. That's just not a legal argument. That's a historical claim. In 2019, speaking about the Jordan Valley, Netanyahu said, "We will apply Israeli sovereignty over the Jordan Valley and the northern Dead Sea." That's not symbolic, it's territorial. And in broader framing, Netanyahu has even said the Jewish people have a historical right to the land of Israel. Let's pause. Land of Israel has not and is not always limited to internationally recognized borders. It's a broader concept, historical, cultural, and political. So let's dive into some of the speeches from Israeli politicians, elected officials, and get into the written policy. The platform of the Likud has historically included this line: between the sea and the Jordan, there will only be Israeli sovereignty. That's not ambiguous. That refers to the Mediterranean Sea, the Jordan River. It includes the West Bank, Gaza. Now, again, precision matters. This is not a map to the Euphrates, but it is a rejection of full Palestinian sovereignty in that territory. And in reality, that shapes everything that follows. Now let's talk about what actually is happening on the ground in and around Israel. Because while rhetoric matters, policy is what creates reality. The West Bank has seen decades of Israeli settlement expansion, hundreds of thousands of Israeli settlers, infrastructure reinforcing long-term presence. Even the United Nations has stated Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territory are in violation of international law. Israeli obviously disputes this, and they argue that the land is disputed, not occupied. They have historical and legal claims to it. But here's the key takeaway. Settlement expansion changes the map, regardless of what you call it. It creates permanence, it creates political reality, and once that reality is built, reversing it becomes extremely difficult. Let's also take into consideration that, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe Israel has banned DNA testing. There's videos that have flooded the internet where all these Jewish people are getting tested, and it shows that they're Ashkenazi Jews leading back to Europe. And from what I understand, that Palestinians actually are being DNA tested as Semites with actual ties to that land more frequently than the Jews. So is that why is that why Israel has banned it? I don't know. Just pointing out that fact. Or what I have been led to believe is fact. Maybe I'll try to find something and add it to the video before I post it. So let's go ahead and keep on moving forward and move into present day scenarios. You got the Gaza war after the October 7th, 2023 attacks by Hamas. Israel launched a large-scale military campaign. If you paid attention at all to social media, you've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of videos showing you every single aspect of what's going on in Israel and Palestine. According to Israel, the official objective is to destroy Hamas, prevent future attacks, destroy Hamas and prevent future attacks. That's the stated mission. But wars often don't just eliminate threats. They often reshape conditions for good, for better or for worse. There have been a lot of discussions, some official, some unofficial, discussing and regarding buffer zones, long-term security control, post-war governance structures. Some Israeli officials have suggested Gaza cannot return to the same status quo. Now again, there is still no official declaration of annexation, but again, history shows something clearly. Territory often, if not always, changes during war, even when that's not the initial stated goal. Now let's briefly dive into internal political pressure, because not all Israeli leaders think the same way, just like all over the world. Bezalel Smotrich has stated there is no such thing as a Palestinian people, which is a shocking term, in my opinion, because you can pretty much find any Bible. I will show you the map from the Bible that I used in high school. It's an NIV Bible, the student Bible. We'll find out page that looks like it was copyrighted. It says 1984, which seems probably right because I probably got it in the early 90s. Oh, I'm sorry. 14th printing 1990, which does make sense because I probably got it around that time. But anyways, back to where we were going. Why that statement matters. Because if you look at your own Christian Bibles, they all say Palestine. And guess Palestine and Sinai. And I got to be honest, it is that area of modern day Israel. I don't think this King James Bible might not. This King James Bible that's newer does not look like it has Palestine in there, but it could. But it's kind of dark in here to see, so we'll just keep going on. I just wanted to point out that I believe it was referenced, that area was referenced as Palestine historically for many years. I'll try to add some stuff in there. But anyways, back to that guy's statement. The statement matters because if the opposing national identity is rejected, territorial compromise becomes far less likely. Itamar Ben-Gvir has pushed for expanding settlements, also pushing for stronger Israeli control in contested areas. These are not fringe activists. These are government officials shaping policy without actually creating official policy. So let's zoom out a little bit from that and talk about Israel's military activity, which is extending far beyond Gaza and the West Bank at this point. You currently have airstrikes in Syria targeting Iranian positions. You got tensions with Hezbollah in Lebanon. You got a constant 30-year nonstop bombardment about Iran and the ongoing conflict posture towards Iran, the ongoing activities. You've got Israel saying that they will not put ground troops if there's a ground war. If that happens, they've left us hang out to dry to fight their war, which I would think every American has to be tired of this. So again, this is not territorial expansion in the classical sense, but this is definitely regional security projection. Perception matters, obviously. To some, this looks like defensive necessities. To others, it looks like continuous military engagement shaping the region. So now let's move on and briefly touch the biggest distortion in this entire conversation, which is online. No matter where you go, you're going to hear Israel is executing a master plan to expand from Egypt to Iraq. Now, I've done some research, and to the best of my research, there is no actual Israeli government plan or document stating that they intend to do this. None. But here's the nuance. You don't need a single wrote out grand plan for this expansion to occur in real time before our eyes. History has shown us that borders shift gradually. Security zones become permanent. Control solidifies over time. The real question is not, is there a master plan? The real question is, are the current policies and conflicts that are going on that involve the United States and Israel in that region expanding control in key areas gradually? And in some places, especially the West Bank, the answer is clear. Yes. At least to a certain degree. Now, I think for the people who voted for MAGA and Trump, this next part might be the most important part. And that is that it's not that we don't care about anyone else, but we've got our own problems to take care of. And is all this stuff that we're doing for Israel or involving Israel or that region, is that actually benefiting America in the America first sense? So let's bring the conversation home, because to most of us, this is where it matters most. The United States. The United States provides billions in aid to Israel. Military cooperation. We give them diplomatic support. So I ask, is the real question, do all Israeli objectives align with American interests, and not the question of, is Israel our ally? Because that's too simple. The real question is, are we tied to outcomes we don't fully control? Because history shows something else very clear. Allies do not always share identical long-term goals. And that can be the scary part. So what is Greater Israel? I can tell you what it's not. And it is not an official government blueprint. It has not been officially declared a military objective of Israel, but it is a set of interpretations of ancient texts, a historical idea influencing some political thought. It's a lens that has been used to interpret modern actions, and it's a concept that gains traction when the map begins to shift. And here's the bottom line. You don't have to believe in a grand plan or a grand conspiracy to recognize that territory, control, and power are constantly being negotiated and sometimes expanded in real time. And when that happens, and wars are active, when borders are fluid, when the rhetoric matches policy in certain areas, people like myself and probably like you, start asking questions, not because they're extreme or crazy or delusional, but because they see the patterns that history has taught them. Maps change, and when they do, the people funding, the people backing, and the people aligning with those changes better understand exactly what's happening.